Are there any particular growth barriers in the addressable space that concern you at the moment? Spaces or problems that perhaps the industry could get together to work on?
So I think that there's a couple of, I'll say, opportunities as opposed to problems, to be less helpful. One is when you're talking about identity matches, the fidelity of matching in the ID space is not consistent across vendors. So that's something that we're working on. From an Ampersand perspective, because we are owned by, owned and partnered with MVPDs and represent a big chunk of the addressable space, about 70%, we think we're in a good place to work with identity providers because MVPD have, direct lines into the home, so we feel pretty good about the deterministic, data set that we have when we do match, and so we're spending a lot of time working on that. The second thing that I would say is, besides identity integrity, which is a type of data, also creation of audiences, so how we use identity to create first and third party audiences, and how do we create integrity in those audiences so that when brands are, because as much as we love, brands work with lots of other media providers besides Ampersand, how do we create consistency for the brand and the agency so that when they sort of haul back all of the data and learnings that each of their suppliers bring to the table, how are they able to really look at that in a comprehensive way? And so because of the data that we sit on, we've actually provided tools to actually provide a comprehensive view, even for media that we don't run for our brands, for our partners, to give them a view of what that looks like. And others are too. So those are, I think, two really big topics, is identity, and then two is how do we collectively bring a holistic view of television delivery to brands to make, better and more informed decisions. Because the promise of Addressable is to make dollars, move as well as possible, to make the dollars, give as much heft as possible. And I think, all of the data that's coming into television can help with that if we do it well.
So we're going to be gathering in Santa Monica in November to talk. We have a unique town hall format at the retreat, which is really designed to promote and facilitate dialogue across the industry. Are there any topics or themes you think the industry really should be talking about? Are there priorities in the couple of years ahead that would be a good substance for us to get our teeth into at the retreat?
What I'd love to talk about is what is practical this year versus next year versus 3 years versus 5 years. Sort of one of the mantras we always talk about here is evolution versus revolution. And I think sometimes we go in with the big, broad, grand, here's where we're going. But the fact is that it takes years to get to where we're going. And I'd argue in the world of media, because everything is evolving, we sort of never really get to an end point, like programmatic, which is a place that I started my career in, is still evolving, literally decades later. So what I'd love to talk about is, for the people in the room, like, what do we think we can actually accomplish by the end of 2023, for example, and 2024? Because while everybody's talking about, let's say, consistent deduplicated measurement across all suppliers next year, I don't believe that to be a reality by any player. Different measurement providers are starting in national, some are starting in local, nobody has everything. So that's an example of, like, how do we actually see what's possible in the short term versus the long term? And so I'd love to have some real conversations about that and how the people in the room could potentially collaborate better together in that space.
So lastly, we're blessed to have an industry that's awash with innovation and exciting developments at the moment. What are you seeing this year that's particularly excited you? What new things are coming along which has got you and your teams really excited about the next few years?
There's a few things. One is that I see the agencies, particularly the larger ones that we're working with, really leaning into Addressable. So we're doing a lot of cool work with agencies that own proprietary tech to basically, plug in like a Lego piece to what they're doing. And I think those types of innovations are really going to drive growth in the addressable space and the television space in general. And we're not the only ones. Other players are doing that. And I think that's really good because I saw that work really well on the programmatic side of the world. And so I believe that sort of playbook is going to work to drive more spend into Addressable. So I'm really excited about that. The second part that I'm excited about, sort of tangential to what we do specifically at Ampersand, but there's a lot moving in the world of retail media and how that will sort of lock arms with television. And I think that space, generally speaking, maybe not in a year from now, but I think, in the next several years, it's going to become more and more interesting as, retailers and television players learn how they can sort of, in a privacy compliant way, leverage their collective data sets to make a better consumer experience, which in the end is something we always talk about. But I don't think we've done a great job of doing that at scale, sort of leveraging the data in a privacy compliant way to make better consumers experience, something that a lot of people have been working toward. But I think we actually have, the real promise of that because of the sophistication of the data that's come into the market in the recent past.